Hi, I'm Mark Steinbrook. This is Kurt Steinbrook. We're with OurChurch.com, and on this video we're going to talk about black hat SEO, or search engine optimization, and what the mortal sins to avoid in SEO. This seems pretty scary, Kurt, when it comes to
very scary. Well, black hat. What is black hat SEO? Well, the term black hat, just so you know, is really a reference to the old TV westerns, where the bad guy would always wear a black hat, and the white hat was for the good guy. And so that's what it's referring to. Are people breaking the rules and all this kind of stuff to try to get ahead in the search engines? There's really nothing. Generally speaking, there's usually nothing morally wrong with what's going on. I mean, if you're hacking people's sites, okay, that's an issue. But usually it's more of a risk-reward type thing. And the real risk here is that these are things that the search engines have said, look, if you do these things, we're going to consider, or we're basically going to treat you like you're trying to manipulate us, and we're just going to either penalize you or kick you out. Okay, so imagine your site no longer in Google and what that will do to your site. That's the risk that you're taking with these things. So personally, I think they're things to avoid. The trick is that they're also things that tend to work. And that's really the seduction of it, right? It's if they didn't work, then nobody would even try to do it. But they do work, and so people are lured into doing it because you can usually get quicker results, better results sometimes. It's just, if they find you, you lose everything. Right. That's the risk that you take, and it's kind of like if you cheat on a test. If you can get away with it and you have all the answers, you got 100 on the test. That's great. Take the morals out of it.
Right.
But if the teacher comes by and sees you with your little sheet, then you failed the test. You got a 0 and probably
kicked out of school.
Got in trouble with your parents, all that kind of stuff. So that's really what we're talking about. So we're going to look at some of the specific things with black hat. It's not everything, but it's just something to give you an idea of some of the major things to look out for. The first one is keyword stuffing. What this is, usually it happens when somebody realizes that they can rank better in the search engines because they used keywords on their site, and then they just went overboard. They took it too far, and so either they just created a block of text that just had every keyword they could think of, and they stuck it on the bottom of their page, or maybe they just used one keyword, but they kept adding more and more and more and more. And sometimes it's even a gradual thing. You start out and you're like, well, I'm not doing too well for this keyword, so I'm going to add it on my page. And then, well, I'm still not doing as well, so I'm going to add it a few more times. And then, after a few times of doing that, all of a sudden you realize, oh, I've got this one keyword on here 50 times, and it's not natural at all. It doesn't make any sense. So when you're just shoving all these keywords in, that's something that the search engines look for, and they can certainly penalize you for it. Another thing is what's called cloaking. And what cloaking is basically any time that you show the search engines different content than what you're showing users. This can be done in a couple of different ways. One way is there are HTML little tricks, little coding tricks, where you can actually determine if the person viewing your site is a Google bot or a person, like a real person, or is it a search engine little bot, and deliver different content. So you're showing the search engines one thing, you're showing the people another thing. Sometimes this is done for semi-legitimate reasons. Maybe you want to show people something that's just mostly graphics.
Right. And
the search engines can't read that, so you're like, well, I'll just show the search engines all this real content, but the people I want to show graphics. Search engines still don't like it, even if you think that it's a legitimate reason to do it. Sometimes it's a very illegitimate reason, and we've had people who, they showed content to the search engines that was, say, maybe about an automotive stuff, and then the people go and click on the link, and it's a gambling site or something. Right? It's just completely different. So whether it seems legitimate or not, you really want to be showing the search engines the same content that you're showing people. That's what they want you to do, and that's how you should do it. There's two other ways that people cloak that I want to mention, because these are actually more common. One is to try to hide text by making it the same color as the background. So you're like, okay, I don't really want to show people this really optimized text that has all my keywords in it, so I'm going to make it so they can't see it because it's the same color as the background, but the search engines will still be able to read it. Well, search engines can read colors too, so they know when you're doing that.
Right.
There's the other thing is to hide it behind images and things like that. So you put the text in there, then you use some little coding tricks so that an image is displayed on top of it, and that's another thing. They can usually detect that as well, but don't try to hide content. Don't try to cloak things like that. That's bad news. Another thing that happened is buying links. Buying links it's a pretty popular thing to do for a black hat thing, because links are really very important in SEO. So when we first started out with search engines, everyone was kind of trading links because they found that could help, and then the search engine said, no, we're not going to count those anymore. So then people started buying links, and this is something that the search engines really started to crack down on. There are ways to do it because there are legitimate reasons to buy links, but if you don't follow the methods and the standards that the search engines give,
right,
then they'll see it as you're trying to manipulate their rankings. So basically they say, mark the links by identifying them as a paid link. So just having something sponsored or whatever on it, and then also adding a no follow tag.
Right.
And so if you do those, then they're fine with it because you're being open with them. You're saying, look, I bought these links, but I'm not trying to mess with your rankings at all. I want this because I wanted that link there.
Right.
And they're fine with that. But if you start to do it without those things, then they're going to look at it as you're trying to manipulate things, and they can punish you. They can also punish the site that's selling you.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is they'll target both the selling site as well as the buying site and penalize both of you.
Yeah, so it's dangerous for both. And buying links is really just one of many linking schemes. And so that's kind of the next thing. It's kind of an all-inclusive concept, but there's just a lot of link schemes out there, things that people try to come up with to get links that are not legitimately gotten. They're not really people saying, hey, I love this content on this site, so I'm going to link to it. It's just other ways of getting links. Sometimes it's spammy blog comments.
Right.
We see that a lot. I have a couple of blogs and I'm constantly deleting those. Sometimes people will create forum profiles, not to actually do anything on the forum. They just create the profile and put a link on there. There are things called pyramids, link pyramids, where they create all these spammy links, and they kind of go through all these different sites that link to each other, and you end up with a couple of sites at the bottom that then link to your site. And the idea is that somehow the search engines won't look far enough down the pyramid to realize that all these spammy links are really just directed at your site. They can figure that out.
Right.
So there's just a lot of things like that that you have to watch out for. And a lot of times, the people that are offering these things, they're not very forthcoming about that. And so when you're talking to someone about a link opportunity, if you will, a lot of times if you start hearing things like, hey, we've put these things in place to protect you or to buffer you from the link building strategies that we're doing, that should tell you that what they're doing is something that could get you in trouble.
Yeah, it's a red flag.
Yeah, if you're doing legitimate link building, you don't have to buffer.
Right.
You don't have to protect yourself from that. You want the search engines to know those links are coming from you.
Yeah, and I think it brings up a good point that if an organization that does SEO for you is engaging in those black hat SEO practices, they don't have anything to worry about. It's all going to come back on you, the website owner, or the website itself. So if your website were to get caught and banned or penalized, it's not going to have any effect on the company that's performing that, and you may or may not have known that they were engaging in these kind of practices. So it's very important for you to try to listen, as Kurt said, very carefully to the practices that they do. And really when it comes down to it, those kind of practices, those black hat techniques will only work in the short term, because Google and Yahoo and Bing have thousands of people that are paid to go out and manually look at websites that are doing these kind of things, that are hiding text or engaging in other kind of black hat practices. And so they are very good at doing what they do, very good at finding people or websites that are engaging in these kind of practices. And so it is a very short-term gain that you will get, and as a result you could have some very long-term problems.
Yeah, absolutely. There were some recent updates when Google was going against a lot of these things. There were a lot of companies that lost everything.
Yeah.
And one other link scheme that I'm going to mention, just because it's been pretty popular lately, is something called private blog networks, which are basically a network of thousands of blogs that you can buy into, and you then submit your own content, if you will, that can have some of your links on it. And that's the blogs are not really intended for users. They try to tell you to put in legitimate content and everything, but generally speaking, it's usually a lot of spammy stuff that just has links. But it's something that the search engines have very specifically said, don't do this. And they've actually taken down several of the private blog networks. Like, they have infiltrated them and figured out what they all are and just wiped them out.
Wow.
So something to avoid.
Yeah, so as a summary, Black Hat SEO, the mortal sins to avoid: keyword stuffing, cloaking, buying links, and just overall link schemes are things that you want to avoid. And as Kurt mentioned before, these are just a few of the many different things, black hat techniques that people engage in and try to game the system that you should try to avoid. So we want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that it has been informative. And if there's anything that we can do for you here at OurChurch.com to help you accomplish your goals or mission online, please email us at support@OurChurch.com.